You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, your weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. I'm Steph, and I have two guests here with me today, and we are going to have a very fun chat about green witchcraft. But of course, first, I am going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves and let you know where you can find them online. So Chris, would you like to get started?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Young. I am the writer of the Green Witch's Guide to Magical Plants and Flowers. And you can find us at Two Green Witches. It's the number two, not the written out two. Two Green Witches at Two Green Witches on Instagram. And we're also Two Green Witches on TikTok, right, Susan?
Yep.
And Susan, what about you?
My name is Susan Ottaviano, and I'm the illustrator, and I developed the recipes for the book. Together, we make Two Green Witches.
Yeah, together we are Two Green Witches.
I think that is so lovely that you are both offering your different skills to this book, which is beautiful. So thumbs up on the illustrations. Those are very impressive because I have no artistic abilities whatsoever. So anytime a book is as beautiful as like the content inside, I get very excited.
Oh,
well, it's a labor of love. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, before we get into a chat about, green witchcraft in general, let's focus on the book so people kind of know a little bit about what to expect with the book and your history in witchcraft in coming to the conclusion to write the book in the first place.
Well, we originally wanted to do a book about flowers. The two of us did. We were trying to figure out a way to combine Susan's art with my writing. And we thought about flowers, and we thought about how can we make it interesting and not just flower, and I was reminded of my first exposure to green witchcraft when I was in my 20s. I met a woman named Irma who worked at the place where I worked. It was back in the days, it was in a talent agency. That was my first job, and it was miserable. And she worked in the kitchen. So I guess you would say she was a kitchen witch as much as she was a green witch. And I would come into her kitchen with tears in my eyes, getting my bialy and my coffee from my boss. And she would teach me things that would ground me and that would make my life a little calmer. And they all worked. And I thought, well, we should call on green witchcraft for this book. And then we decided we would focus on love and make it about love and how to draw and attract love. And that's kind of how the book came about. And then I don't want to say thank goodness for COVID by any means, but during COVID, we had the downtime to really do it.
And the book really ended up growing organically for us. Like Chris said, it started out that we were just going to do this little kind of pamphlet with flowers and illustrations, and then it slowly grew into this whole book. Why don't we add the magical mindfulness? Why don't we add these? What about do you know? We had interest. We've always had an interest in Greek mythology and the history of all different types of myths and legends and flowers, and we just kept going. And so from the really small pamphlet that was going to come out, we grew it into this book really organically. So we're really excited about that. It really happened took on a life of its own. It was like magic.
Yeah, it was like magic. The book really kind of emerged and made itself known to us over time.
That is a great story. Chris, I think everybody can relate to having a job like that in your 20s.
Oh gosh, yeah, it was my first job, and nothing I did was fast enough or enough. And I would go into the kitchen to get him his coffee and and I would just be like, oh, what do I do? And he would say, well, let's burn some onion skins, and why don't you make a wreath of birch twigs for your door, and just all this stuff that grounded and cleansed me, and it worked. So we tried to do it here.
That is a great way to get started. And I think a lot of people have turned to witchcraft, especially green witchcraft and kitchen witchcraft in particular, when they have situations like that, because I think those are two of the most accessible for people.
Yeah, and it's so
Yes.
grounding.
And meditative.
Meditative, yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So for
I mean,
somebody who is maybe brand new and coming to this and thinking that they aren't interested in green witchcraft because they don't have a green thumb, what would you tell them, or what advice would you give them?
I would say, well, we do have growing instructions in the book. So we can help them out with the green thumb a little bit. But I would say don't worry about, not whether or not you do have a green thumb, because a lot of it's stuff that you can get at the grocery store, to be honest. I mean, a lot of the plants, or you could get at a nursery, you can get, but I always suggest growing them yourself because you want them to be organic and you want them to be pesticide free, especially if you're ingesting them in any way. And it's always important to know what plants are poisonous. But I would say don't be intimidated at all by it.
We're trying to inspire creativity. So in a way, we don't want to hear, I don't have a green thumb. We want to encourage you to explore your creativity, whether it be in the garden or the kitchen, or just being more aware of things around you.
Yeah.
So this book would be great for no matter what level you're at.
Oh yeah, I definitely think this is good for like someone who's witch adjacent. Who's kind of like curious, a little witch curious, as we call it, because we've kept it all really simple. We've kept the spells really simple. Some of the recipes are a little complicated, but I think they're very clear. So we've tried to make it so that it's a launching pad for you. You can look at the book and then get inspired to do other spells that are simple or as complicated as you want.
What are some of the recipes that people can expect in the book?
We have recipes for a pesto. We have recipes for a pomegranate punch. We have recipes for a parsley salad. Really, we have recipes for all the book is based on 26 herbs and flowers, A to Z. So we have recipes for all of the edible herbs or flowers. The rest, a lot of them are poisonous, like Chris said. But the ones that are edible, we do have recipes for. And we have a chapter that's about a special love meal that you could serve to your beloved, or you could make for yourself, which is a very mindful practice, just to make yourself a beautiful dinner and a little self-love. So
yeah, we tried to make it not a manipulative kind of love spells, but the kind of spells that you can do for yourself, for your cat. We tried to make it what's the best word to say?
Not intimidating, just
not
inspiring.
intimidating.
Just inspiring and a jump off point. We're really about not following all the rules, or if this inspires you to make, we have a tulip oil. If this inspires you to make like a rose petal face cream, that's great. And we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
I like that because first of all, you are talking to a whole group of podcast listeners that are animal lovers. So you're in the right place. As soon as you said cat, this is the right group.
Yeah. Well, we consciously made the book vegan too, for that same reason. We're animal lovers, and we thought, well, let's make this book as zen and cruelty free as possible. So all the spells are cruelty free.
I enjoy that. And I like that you mention, self-love and things as well, because usually love spells do sort of get that bad rap that you're trying to manipulate somebody else to fall in love with you. But that's not really what love spells are at the end of the day. Not what they have to.
Ours are just drawn to attract love into your life, or to attract a loving feeling for yourself, or, so it's not really like, throw the rope around their neck and pull them into the house.
Or take the time to make the mushroom pasta, cultivate, buy your mushrooms at the farmer's market, make your own dinner with love, and enjoy it. You deserve it.
Yeah.
That is an excellent idea, because I don't think that we focus on self-love enough. So it's definitely something that I am trying to bring more of into my life, because I don't do that for myself, where I'm just going to sit down and make a nice meal that's just for me. I only do it on the days where I am feeding my husband. And
Yeah.
firehouse, I should do it for myself as well.
But maybe you want to have a bath to yourself, where you have like the jasmine bath salts that you made, and put some rose petals in the tub and light some candles and have some apple tea that we have a recipe for. It's everything's designed so you could just do it for yourself too.
If you take care of yourself, it puts you in a better position to take care of others. So
Yeah.
I think the other part of our book that kind of like slowly, I think this was the last part we added to it, is we have a section called magical mindfulness. And it really is about, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of these things, enjoying the simple things in life, and really treasuring them.
Yeah.
Do either of you have a favorite recipe in the book, or a favorite plant that is featured?
Well, it all started with roses. So I guess we love the roses, but recently I've been loving the Queen Anne's lace chapter.
And I've been like really into the basil lately. And plus I love pesto.
Oh, great season for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can grow a few things. I wouldn't say I don't have a green thumb. I'd say I am still learning. I'm in the process of learning.
right.
But basil is one of those things that I am confident in, because that just grows like crazy.
Right. I think that's the cool thing about green witchcraft, is that it's always about learning. Like I would not say that I'm an expert on anything, but I would say that I'm constantly learning and looking things up. And I think for me, that's a part of the fun of green witchcraft, is there's always more to learn, and there's always more plants to know about. So I love that.
We like to encourage people to be curious,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like that you say that you're not an expert and you're always still learning, because I have been
He
told
really is
to have a certified wildlife habitat.
He's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I was very excited. I got the garden certified a few years ago. And, you have to do certain things. You have to make it a living space and a habitat space and a place where they can feed and nest and get water and blah, blah, blah. And I was really excited about getting my garden certified.
It's amazing. I didn't even know that you could do that.
Yeah. So it's my garden is all devoted to being a habitat. It's pretty too. It's not that I'm not making it so much so that it just looks like, it kind of does look like a wild, crazy jungle, but I think it's a pretty wild, crazy jungle.
It's gorgeous. His garden is amazing.
Oh, it must be so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's 20 years in the making. And like I say, I'm not an expert, but over time, spending time with the plants, you learn what grows and what scenario, what doesn't grow. And I think gardening really teaches you about patience, because some things don't, like I planted a wisteria, I think 10 years ago, and this was the first year it bloomed. It took that long. So, you have to learn to just kind of sit back and wait.
Which I have mentioned on this podcast before. Of all of my skills and everything in life, the thing that I cannot do is be patient. I am so bad at it. I'm trying so hard.
I'm so impatient. The one place, I will say, the one place in my life where I feel like I've learned to go, okay, I'm planting this Manila poppy, and I know that I'm not going to see flowers for several years. So I'm just going to let it do its thing. And I'm going to not stand with my hands on my waist going, come on. And then I just go worry about other things like the book and stuff like that.
I am trying to be more patient. I have roses for the first time this year out in the back, because there was like a little stick that fell off from my mom's garden, and she put it back there. She's like, no, I swear it's not dead. It's going to have roses. And it's been about 5 years, but it finally has roses this year.
That's great. Congratulations.
See, just a little TLC and some love, and yeah.
I know, I could not believe it, but I'm excited that roses are in the book. Now I can do something.
Congratulations on your rose.
In terms of just your witchcraft and practice in general, whether or not it's in the book, do you have anything, any sort of spell work or ritual that you do on a semi-regular basis? I know every day looks different, but maybe weekly or monthly.
One thing that I always do is before I'm going to do something, I sort of cleanse my area by lighting incense. That's just a little thing I do. And I really love the Nag Champa incense. I love lavender incense. That's just a little thing that I do. I always light my incense before I start up something. I lit an incense just before we started talking, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
Little cleansing. Maybe
like
I'll
that.
sage. Maybe I'll sage, that kind of thing.
I like that a lot. I don't light incense too much. It bothers my dog. But I love that. I love when it works for other people, because I know that that is very popular amongst witches.
Yeah, I love it.
Susan, did you have anything that you do sort of regularly?
I think I consider myself more like an art witch. So I think things that you're doing for me to get into the flow state, and that might be having a cup of tea, taking a walk. I guess that's what relate. Have you ever heard of like The Artist's Way, the book?
I have, but I only heard of it. Not
Well,
that
it talks a lot about what we're saying about mindfulness of taking a walk, doing morning pages, doing certain rituals that kind of put you into this flow state where you're open to, embrace your work.
Yeah, like for me, having like, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I really love having like rose hip tea in the morning. And I love to go into the garden and just kind of like wake up slowly. And it's very meditative, and it helps me tune into kind of the natural world before, the hecticness of whatever that day is. It's a little ritual.
And I love the idea of the temporariness of like what Chris is saying. You go in the garden and you see what's bloomed and you see what has died, and you're sort of just, you're in the moment, because you don't have any control over that. I mean, you try to have control over it. You try to water your plants, but that's the temporariness of nature and life. That's very exciting, I think.
Yeah, I'll deadhead my sweet peas and deadhead them. Eventually they're gonna die, sadly.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that in a very morbid
No.
way. I know your garden is like kicking it right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. We had a lot of rain in California this winter, and so the garden is just bananas. Though there are no bananas in the garden.
No, I mean, a garden really is a great way to see that cyclical cycle of everything that we go through.
Yeah, even in Southern California, you would think, oh, it's always sunny and the same. But once you get to know your plants, you do see the seasons change, and some plants come and some go. And, I know that the jasmine will only be there in February, and to enjoy it February and March, and then it's over. And then, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it must be beautiful. I have a very short growing season here in Chicago.
Oh, you're in Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I grew up in Indiana, so I know you have a hot, humid, short growing season.
Oh yeah, Indiana's exactly the same weather. You get it. There's, lots of snow that comes and ruins things, that get that like second frost that comes through, so you can't plant stuff too early because you're just gonna die. It's sneaky.
The one thing I will say is the one thing that's nice about winter is it's a good time to make a cup of tea and daydream with all your seed catalogs and your plant catalogs and think, what am I going to do in spring?
That is very true. And that's one of the things that tea is the easiest, because you really don't have to. I know people are, concerned about the proper terms. It's not technically tea if you don't use the tea leaves, but I'm just talking about like an herbal cup of something.
Yeah.
You can grab anything from your garden and put it in water. If it's
just about.
And I love being able to do that because I think that's one of the easiest ways to work with the plants that you grow, even
Well,
though it's technically not tea.
Speaking of jasmine, that reminds me, this year I discovered that you could make, I took like a handful of jasmine blooms and put them in a pitcher of water and let the pitcher set overnight. And the next day, it was the most delicious, refreshing drink I've ever tasted.
I
So
have never tried
that's
that.
that's going to be my new spring ritual is jasmine water.
Ooh, that sounds lovely.
I know it even sounds good.
Yeah.
It's better than it sounds.
It sounds like spring it in a glass, just refreshing.
It is. It is. It is. It is a garden in a glass. It's so wonderful. I feel like rose tea is the same thing. Like that's why I love rose tea so much, is it really feels like, wow, you're just immersing yourself in roses in the best way.
I have never had it in tea, but that is something that I am excited to do now that I have a
Oh
rose,
yeah,
little
it's
baby rose
super,
plant.
it's super easy. It's super easy. You'll love it.
Are there any plants that you keep around either, close by or inside your house that you use for its properties rather than, specifically taste, making a recipe, anything like for, let's say, prosperity or protection? Do you have any favorite plants for those?
I have a geranium, kind of a hot pink geranium that I keep by my front door for protection.
Ooh, geranium.
Yeah, like just boring old geranium, but they're amazing protection plants, and good luck too. They're good luck. And also rosemary. I like rosemary too. Like I love putting a little rosemary under the pillow, or they say too that if you put it under your bed, it protects you from bad dreams and bad juju when you're sleeping.
Yeah, I've got rosemary all over the place. Agreed.
Yeah, it's a good one.
What about you, Susan? Do you have any?
I think lavender is definitely something. And again, I love using the rose petals. I've made a rose petal, we have this Aphrodite mix, and it's a spray that has neroli oil, rose oil, and I love to spray it around, my pillows and linens, and
Yeah.
that also has some lavender in it as well.
Do you have a lot of Greek mythology influenced in your planting in your recipes?
Absolutely. I mean, it's always been a love of mine. Chris and I share a lot of loves that we've had for 30, 40 years. So this book has been really fun for us because we got to put everything in it and really got to explore. And it's really been fun with that. There's so many, we tackle a lot of the Greek myths, and just the history of a lot of different flowers is so interesting, like tulips and other things I didn't know until Chris discovered them.
Do you have an example?
Well, my favorite one is, because it's just so what is hyacinth is often used in same-sex love spells because of the Greek myth that is behind it, which is that Apollo, the god of the sun, and Zephyr, the god of the west wind, both fell in love with this Spartan prince named Hyacinthos. And Apollo took him out on a discus throwing date, and Zephyr got wind of this, pun intended, and he blew a wind into their faces, and the discus hit Hyacinthos and killed him instantly. And then where his blood fell, which is always the case in Greek myths, where the tears or the blood fell, that's where the flowers grew. And Apollo, in his grief, named all the flowers hyacinths in honor of Hyacinthos. So, I mean, any spell can be for anything. Any love spell can be for anybody. But if you're trying to do it for same sex, you might zhuzh it up with a little hyacinth.
And I love the story of Persephone and the pomegranate seed. I've been obsessed with that for my whole life. And I think that I wrote it. There was a song that the band I was in, we wrote in, what year was that, Chris? Like 88, about 88. Persephone. And so it's great to be able to honor her.
Didn't she choke on a pomegranate seed?
No, she she was abducted by Hades, the god of the underworld, and her mother, who was the god of the earth, Demeter, she tried to get her back, and they said she could come back as long as she hadn't eaten anything, but she ate a pomegranate seed that Hades gave her, so she wasn't able to return. And then that was just that was her undoing. And what they made a compromise so that she could come back half of the year. So that's why there's summer when she comes back, and then there's winter when she comes back to Earth. It's summer, and her mother makes it summer and makes all the trees grow. And then when she has to go back to the underworld with Hades, it is winter, and her mother is angry and makes all the trees die and the earth barren.
Ooh, I love that.
Another nice little story.
Yeah.
About a woman abducted.
Yeah. Yay.
It always spoke to me. And we have pomegranate champagne punch.
Yes.
Pomegranates are called love apples.
And I will tell you that we had a book signing in Provincetown, and I might have gotten a little tipsy on that pomegranate punch.
Excellent. That's the best way to have a book signing.
It did help.
Persephone is one of my favorites too. I love all of the mythology, but Greek is definitely one of my favorites. And ancestry wise, I only have like 2% Greek in me. It's very small, but for some reason, it's always called to me.
I've got no Greek at all, but I think it's fantastic when you hear these ancient myths and how the flowers or plants are involved and how it affects how people see them even today or how they use them. I love that.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fascinating that we still have carried down these things, and people will associate those plants with those certain myths without even realizing that they're doing it. They just they have no idea why.
Apples come in so many different stories. We had to figure out which one to choose which one we would tell, because it just keeps coming up, right, Chris?
Yeah, apples. So especially with love.
I feel like apples are a very witchy fruit because they've got the pentagram inside. So everybody has them all over the place. I love apples in witchcraft everywhere.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's a perfect thing.
It's definitely one of my favorites, especially in the fall and winter. So I'm excited that you've got apples in the book and apple tea. Can't wait.
Chapter one.
Cannot wait for that season to come up. I am trying to go a little bit more with the seasons this year. That was kind of my goal, because you can, from a grocery store, get everything year round, but
yeah,
it's not exactly natural for where I live. So I'm trying to pick out what's, the freshest and natural for the season I am, where I'm at right now.
Which, especially if you're doing, what do they call that? The 100-mile diet, where everything you get is grown within 100 miles of you. So that way you would be forced to stay seasonal, and apparently it's more healthy.
And there's something great about making do with what you have. For our book signing last week, we were supposed to have the stuffed figs, and they weren't in season. We couldn't get them where we were, so we stuffed the dates, and everybody was saying how much they liked it, and maybe we should change that in our menu to
the stuffed dates were amazing.
Ooh, sounds delicious.
I might have been eating too during our book signing.
You come into Chicago, because I need to go to your book signing with all of these treats that you guys offer.
We might.
I hope you do. I will be there.
That's where to come.
I will be front and center for
good.
And punch. Every fun I'm there.
We're doing a little tour, so we're going to New York and San Francisco and Salem, and we'd love to add Chicago to our tour.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
I love Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities.
Really? Even after you grew up in Indiana and got to California, you'd really want to come back?
Yeah, I mean, you know why? Because when I was a kid, Indiana, we didn't get the bands and stuff that I liked, but all the really great bands would come to Chicago. So I was always like hightailing it up to Chicago when I was in high school and college. And I kind of love it because of that. Like, the culture there is so great. No offense, Indiana, but I'm just saying Chicago really has it together.
Chicago's my favorite city in the Midwest, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
Yes. It's something.
Well, the architecture alone is so amazing.
Yeah.
It is. It really is a beautiful city.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you do come here. That would be fantastic. And listeners, I'm going to have everything linked over in the show notes, as always, at witchwednesdays.com. So if they are coming to your city, you will know. If you just want to, check out the book, the Instagram, everything, all of that will be easy for you to find. Just want to throw that out there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
And before we wrap up for the day, I always like to ask, it does not have to be green or kitchen witchcraft related, but just in general to magic, spirituality, witchcraft. Do you have any advice for beginners? Like you mentioned earlier, witchcraft adjacent, if they're just dipping their toes in, do you have any advice for those people?
I would say don't be afraid, and just dip your toe in, and don't feel. That's what we like about our book, that like what we said, it's not intimidating, and you don't have to do it. It's like yoga or something. You don't have to do it right. It's a practice. You give yourself a chance to try and learn and get what you can out of it. There's no right or wrong. For us, there's no right or wrong. It's the journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say really follow your instincts. Go with your gut. I would say that's a good advice in general.
Yeah.
But follow your instincts, and that's probably the best you can do when you're like approaching witchcraft, is like, what feels good in my heart to be doing.
That's excellent advice. Beautiful advice, both of you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for your time today and chatting about your book, sharing your story. I know that everyone who has listened to this podcast has deep interest in green witchcraft and kitchen witchcraft. I get questions about those two things all the time. So I am so thankful that you offered your expertise and that you wrote and illustrated this great book.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was so fun.
It really is. I am going to have a picture for everyone who's listening to see, but it really it looks like love on the cover. Like, it's just so beautiful.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you feel that way. And also what you're saying is to approach all your spells with love, and to, cook with love, and create your garden with love. And that, that's the secret ingredient.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And listeners, that's everything that I have for this week. I will see you all next week.
Bye.
Need even more? Subscribe to Patreon and YouTube for exclusive bonus content. Order a themed witchcraft box every month through Witch Wednesdays on Etsy. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast. Find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com.